Okay, ready to get a little spooky? Let's dive into a topic that never gets old, ghosts.
Ooh, good one.
You guys sent us some interesting Wikipedia excerpts about ghosts, and I have to say, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So it's September 17th, 2024. And as we explore this, I'm curious, are you more of a believer or a skeptic when it comes to ghosts? Or just fascinated by the stories?
Right.
Let's see what these excerpts have to say. Starting with, how does Wikipedia even define a ghost?
hmm
They call it the soul or spirit of a dead person or animal appearing to the living.
Okay.
So, simple enough, right?
Well, I don't know about simple. I mean, that definition alone has so many assumptions baked into it.
Interesting. How
Well,
so?
like, first you have to assume that there is a soul or spirit,
Yeah, okay.
then that it's somehow separate from the body,
Yep.
and that it can interact with the world in a way that we can perceive.
Wow, you're right. We're going deep already, and it's just the definition. It reminds me of that line, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting when you realize that ghosts aren't just a Western thing. Your Wikipedia excerpts mention them popping up in cultures all over. The ancient Near East, Egypt, Greece, China. Looks like pretty much everyone have their own version of a ghost story.
So it's not just us in the 21st century getting spooked. This goes way back.
Oh, way back. And the fact that it's so widespread across so many different cultures and time periods, well, it kind of makes you wonder, what is it about the human experience that makes us so drawn to these stories?
Yeah, why are we so fascinated by ghosts? Is it a primal fear of the unknown or maybe a longing for something beyond our everyday lives?
It's definitely something to ponder. And speaking of different cultures, you know what else is interesting? The different types of ghosts and why they're supposedly hanging around. You've got your classic vengeful spirits, then there are the ones guarding treasure. Even ghosts delivering messages from beyond the grave. It's like a whole spectral buffet out there.
It really is. And those themes, as cliche as they might seem, they actually tell us a lot about our own hopes and fears, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like, take the vengeful ghosts. That seems to tap into our deep desire for justice, this idea that even after death, wrongs should be righted.
Right, like there's some kind of cosmic balance that needs to be restored. Totally. It's like that line from Shakespeare, if thou didst ever thy dear father love, revenge his foul and most unnatural murder.
Ooh, Hamlet. Always a classic.
Talk about a ghost with a bone to pick. But then you've got those ghosts guarding treasure, like straight out of a pirate legend. Why do you think that is?
Hmm. Maybe it's about unfinished business, a refusal to let go of material possessions, even in death. Or,
Or what?
or maybe it's just plain old greed that lingers beyond the grave. Those pirate ghosts sure know how to hold on to their loot.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, hands off my treasure, even in death. But then on the flip side, you've got those messenger ghosts, the ones who show up with news from the other side.
Right.
What do
Yeah.
you think that's about?
Well, it really makes you think about that human need for closure, for reassurance that maybe, just maybe, there's something more after this life. It's both eerie and comforting at the same time.
Totally. It's like we want to believe, but then there's that skeptical part of us that says, hold on a minute, and that's where the science comes in. Or actually, the lack of science.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we have to acknowledge there's no concrete, scientifically proven evidence that ghosts exist.
Right, and the Wikipedia article even points out that a lot of what people perceive as ghosts can be explained by totally normal stuff, like drafts, weird noises, things like that. They even mention sleep paralysis.
Oh, sleep paralysis is a
Yeah.
trick. Can you imagine waking up, you're aware of your surroundings, but you can't move, you can't speak?
Oh, that's terrifying.
Right. And then you start hallucinating, feeling a presence in the room. It's no wonder people have been interpreting those experiences as ghostly encounters for centuries.
Whoa, so even without the spooky castles and cemeteries, our own minds can create these incredibly vivid experiences.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper than that. Our brains are wired to find patterns, make connections, even when none exist. So if we're already primed to believe in ghosts, maybe from stories we've heard or cultural beliefs, our brains might interpret a creaky floorboard or a sudden chill as something more sinister.
So you're saying it's like our expectations are shaping our reality.
In a way, yeah. And speaking of culture, it's fascinating how different cultures don't just have different ghost stories, but completely different ideas about what ghosts actually are, their motives, their powers.
Right, like what they look like.
It's all over the map.
It's true. It's like looking at ghosts through a different lens, depending on where you're from and what you believe. One thing I found interesting is how the whole ghost craze seemed to explode in the 19th century. right around the time spiritualism was becoming really popular.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes sense when you think about it. Spiritualism, with its seances and mediums, it really captured the public imagination. People were actively tricking to connect with the dead, to find solace or closure.
Right.
It created this perfect breeding ground for ghost stories to thrive. And let's not forget, this was also a time when new technologies like photography were emerging.
Oh, right, like trying to capture those ghostly images.
Exactly. Though I'm guessing those early spirit photos wouldn't hold up very well to today's Photoshop skills.
I know, right? But still, it makes you think, are ghosts real or are they just products of our overactive imaginations?
It's a question that's been haunting humanity for centuries.
Hmm.
And while we might never have a definitive answer, it's fascinating to explore the possibilities. Because one thing's for sure, the belief in ghosts is deeply ingrained in human culture and continues to fascinate us.
It really does make you question everything. What happens after we die? Is there something more?
It's the ultimate mystery.
It's like trying to grab onto a shadow, It's
Yeah.
always just out of reach. But maybe that's part of the appeal, that sense of mystery. There's something about the unknown that keeps us coming back for more.
Totally. And just because we haven't been able to definitively prove ghosts exist, well, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't.
Right.
It might just be that we haven't figured out the right way to look for them yet.
That's a good point. I mean, think about it. 100 years ago, could we have even imagined the technology we have today? Smartphones, the internet. Who knows what kind of tools we'll have a century from now to study these kinds of things?
Exactly. What seems impossible today might be commonplace tomorrow. And even though we can find perfectly reasonable explanations for many or even most supposed ghost sightings, there are always those cases that make you stop and think. The unexplained stories, the ones that defy logic and science. Those are the ones that really keep that mystery alive.
Those are the ones that stick with you. So, for someone listening to this who's just gone on this deep dive with us into the world of ghosts, what would you say are some of the biggest takeaways?
Hmm. Well, I hope they've come away with a better understanding of just how universal these stories are. Ghost stories. They aren't just spooky campfire tales. They reflect this age-old human fascination with the afterlife and with what happens after we die. We see it everywhere, in every culture throughout history. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. It's like this common thread that connects us all, no matter where we come from or what we believe. And it also highlights the power of our own minds, right? The way our beliefs and expectations can shape our experiences, especially when it comes to things we can't see or explain.
Absolutely. And, maybe, just maybe, this conversation has inspired someone out there to look at things a little differently, with a healthy dose of both curiosity and skepticism.
That's what we're all about here. Questioning our assumptions, exploring different perspectives, that's how we learn and grow. So, before we wrap things up, is there one last thought-provoking question we can leave our listener with? Something to ponder as they go about their day.
How about this? If ghosts are real, what does that tell us about consciousness? About the very nature of reality? Could it be that there are dimensions we can't perceive with our senses, realms that exist just outside our normal understanding?
Now, that's a question that'll keep you up at night. Great one.
Thanks. It makes you think.
It really does. And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of ghosts. Whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and who knows, maybe you'll have your own brush with the unexplained.